Certainly.
Yeah.
John, we're going to go back to you now. I think we've corrected the audio issue, so I appreciate you standing by and your patience there in Los Angeles. I'll ask you again, with Fletcher Cox being out and it comes to this defensive line, what's the name? Who's the guy you think steps up the most with the highest ceiling today?
Well, I hope you have me. I heard Degon say Milton Williams. He's part of it. And also Jalen Carter. I think you have to expect a little bit more, not only from a rep standpoint, but from a playmaking standpoint. I think that's the hope because Jalen's been so dynamic. But Milton Williams is that underrated guy who plays a lot, has been the actual starter. And I think this is a big opportunity for him to be that next man up. The good news about, Fletcher Cox hasn't missed a game due to injury. You got to go all the way back to 2017. He missed some games at the end of 2021 when the Eagles were resting players 2020. But this is the first time he's missed a game to injury, again, way back to 2017. So he's been a stalwart. He's been there. But next man up, it's got to be Milton Williams. And you hope that the dynamic nature of Jalen Carter's game also shows up today.
Hey, John, this is a debate we were having at the top of this broadcast today. Bradley Roby's going to play. He's not in football shape yet, but he's going to play. Who would you put in the slot, and how much would you play Roby?
Yeah, he's going to be on a pitch count from what we're told, D-Gun. And, the number I was given by the Eagles was he's not going to be out there for 70 snaps. So he's not going to be a starter playing the whole game, that type of thing. One, you hope the Rams don't run 70 offensive plays. That's a bad sign. I think, they have 7 cornerbacks up. So I think they're a little bit worried about Cooper Kupp returning, as they should be. We know Puka Nacua, what he's done as a rookie player. And Matthew Stafford's a high-volume passer. The Eagles are going to throw the kitchen sink at Cooper Kupp and see who's doing the best job. I truly believe it's going to be that in this particular game. And you kind of hold on. You hope there's some, maybe a little rust from Kupp's standpoint as well, because he hasn't played yet this season. So it's one of those things where you cross your fingers. You have a lot of bodies. Even Eli Ricks is up, and he's been working in the slot in practice. Hey, keep throwing bodies at Cooper Kupp, especially if it gets hot, and try to limit him as much as possible. I think that's the Eagles' plan.
Hey, John, I watched the press conferences, for the coordinators this week, and appreciate your questioning of Sean Desai on what to do when you have 5 defensive linemen that present 32 pressures in a game, yet your defensive linemen only come up with, 2 sacks last week, and your starting linebacker has 3 of the 5 total. The Eagles have not fared well, against the bunch look, and they haven't fared well against teams with a high volume of motion that confuses communication, so on and so forth. What's going to be the remedy today for the Eagles in this situation? Because Sean McVay is a high motion guy, and they run a lot of different, bunch looks, whether it's 3 wide receivers, 2 wide receivers and a back coming out of the backfield, or, the Z close with the Y and the back coming out of the backfield.
Yeah, Seth, that's what I was talking about. And this is the start of a little bit of a stretch here where the Eagles are going to see not only the Rams, but also Miami in a couple of weeks, which are 2 of the biggest motion teams in the NFL. Miami being the most team that uses the most motion of any team. And it stresses, the discipline of the defense. And as you know, when especially younger, more experienced players see all that movement, sometimes, Jim Sports used to call it eyewash. Sometimes they lose focus. They lose a little bit of discipline as far as what they're supposed to do on a possible coverage call. And that's what Sean McVay and later Mike McDaniel are trying to do when they use that motion. I think that's a low-key sort of advantage of bringing Roby in at this point, because then all of a sudden you not only have Slay and Bradbury, who are very confident in their abilities, but you also have another veteran corner in Bradley Roby. I think that's more of a concern with the younger corners, Josh Joe, Mario Goodrich, Eli Riggs, players like that. But it's going to be a big test, no question about it. It's going to be a big test for this defense to keep their discipline over the next number of weeks. And I'm sure, the Rams are going to test it. That's part of their game plan, and that's part of what they want to do.
Quick, John, so how does that also affect the safety position? Because normally what winds up happening, especially in the red zone, when you get motion and you're only in single high safety in the red zone, how does that affect the safeties? Because, the Eagles still haven't figured out, when that guy goes in motion, your safeties have to rock and roll. You saw last week on the jet sweep, nobody was there because that guy motioned from one side to the other, and the safeties didn't even rock and roll. There was no adjustment in the coverage.
Yeah, and I bring it up with the corners because I think that's my personal biggest concern, because they've shown the younger corners have shown a lack of discipline in the past. But you're right, it's the entire back seven, so it includes the linebackers as well. And the Eagles have taken a step back when it comes to, if you think about last year, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Marcus Epps, and what they have this year. But they are a little bit more comfortable with Reed Blankenship, and now Justin Evans is going to be back. So they think they'll be a little bit better. And then we know Nick Morrow and Zach Cunningham are coming off probably their best game this season, certainly their best game together. But as we look at those two players, coverage is probably the weak point of their game at this point. So, yeah, I think, when teams play the Eagles today, they're more in their game planning, they're more concerned with stopping the front, the defensive front, protecting the quarterback. And if they do that, especially with a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, there's going to be opportunities to make plays in the passing game. And that has shown up because the Eagles come into this game 27th ranked in the NFL in pass defense. They've given up the third most explosive plays in the NFL to this point. The only ones worse, I believe, are Denver, and I forget the second team, but they are number 3 from the worst standpoint of giving up explosive plays. And you think about that, guys, that's the whole point of this defense. That's the whole point of the Vic Fangio scheme, to give up as few explosive plays as possible. And right now they're at the bottom of the league, so that's not a positive.
What's up, John? Let's jump over to the offensive side of the ball for the Eagles. We saw Jalen Hurts have his best game passing last week, but coming into this game against the Rams, not only are they ranked 14th, giving up 111 yards per game, they're ranked 23rd in the league, giving up 4.4 yards per carry. Do you expect the Eagles to try to run the ball against the Rams, or do you see them sticking with Jalen Hurts and that passing game?
Well, the good thing is the Eagles are worried about, as everybody is, with the Rams. It starts with 99, as they say, Aaron Donald. And the good news is there isn't a lot of support for Aaron Donald these days with the Rams. Not a great defense from a talent standpoint. So I think the Eagles come into this game with a balanced mindset. And by that, I mean they think they can run the ball and throw the ball. As far as how that shakes out the game, that'll probably depend on where they are in the game. If it becomes a shootout, obviously you're going to need Jalen Hurts to throw the football a little bit more. If they get a big early lead, maybe you try to run the football a little bit more to close out the Rams. But, if I look at it from the overall perspective, the complementary nature of football, I think the Eagles are going to struggle to slow the Rams' passing game. So this game might be a shootout. And if it's a shootout, it's going to be more about Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Hopefully they can finally get Dallas Goedert going. And that's how it looks on paper. So that leans more towards the passing game. But I think, as you point out, Bill, the Eagles are very confident they can run the football against this team as well. And I mentioned that before. The Chargers and the Broncos. The Chargers are that second team. Those are the only two teams that have given up more explosive passing plays than the Eagles.
Wow. John joining us, of course, from Los Angeles. John, I want to talk to you there about Dallas Goedert. The Eagles have had their struggles in the red zone. We were just talking about it. But why not Dallas Goedert in the red zone more? Why not more of an opportunity for a very talented tight end? Why the dip in production, at least numbers-wise? We understand that in the run game, he's a very crucial part of what the Eagles do with their run offense. But in the pass game, a huge dip in numbers. We were talking about it, not even 100 yards yet on the season through 4 games. So what can we expect, if anything, with more of an effort to try to get him involved more in the passing game?
Yeah, I think the Eagles are at the point where Nick Sirianni keeps saying the sample size is small, and he's right, but it's getting larger. They want to get Dallas Goedert involved. I asked Nick this week specifically about the red zone because they're basically top 10 in most offensive categories except red zone offense, and they're down in the 20s, I believe 24th overall. And one of the problems is not utilizing their bigger bodies in the red zone in the passing game. And that would be A.J. Brown most notably and Dallas Goedert. You know, part of it is they had such success in the red zone last year, but most of that was tied to the running game. And a lot of that was tied to the quarterback running game. And that part has sort of gone away. So you could argue the Eagles need to throw it more to their bigger bodies, but you could also argue when they did have success in the run game in the red zone last year, it was that quarterback running game sort of fueling.
John, do you think this will be a close game, or do you think the Eagles' superiority will just bear itself out when it's all said and done? The Rams are desperate, 0-2 at home, but how do you see it?
I do think it's going to be a close game. I think the Rams obviously want to win a home game, but I think the Rams are going to be able to score some points. So I do think it's going to be a shootout type of game. The Eagles are probably going to have to score in the 30s to win this game, but I think they can, and I think they will ultimately. It'll be a lot like it's gone this season to date. The Eagles will out-talent a lesser team in the end, but I think there's going to be some ugly moments. I think Cooper Kupp's going to make some plays. Puka Nacua is going to make some plays. Might even be Tutu Atwell. And pay close attention to how healthy Matthew Stafford is, because he banged up his hip last week. But if he's healthy and he looks good, I mean, that guy can throw the football on anything.
John, so what's the game plan for the day for the Philadelphia Eagles? You know, I felt like they went into the game against Washington last week with the intent that they could get well in the passing game based upon where Washington ranked, you know, versus the pass. This week, the Rams rank better against the pass than they do the run. Is the game plan to attack them in the run game to get what they want in the pass game, and to minimize the amount of production, the amount of possessions, I should say, that you give a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, who's averaging 41 passes a game? Or is it to come out, their game plan to pass the ball early, try to get a lead, and then run it out at the end?
Well, I think always it's almost in the modern game, the Eagles feel you pass to run the ball, not run to pass the ball. So you do want to get that early lead. And if they get a 2-score lead, then I think you start seeing the running game take over. He made that comparison set to the Washington game. I think the difference in the game planning there is, you know, they knew Washington had a really good front, and they saw a big opportunity to get the passing game going. Here, as I mentioned to Bill, I think they believe that they can do both, but if the Rams passing game gets going, then you almost have to win the shootout game. So I think when we talk about the run-pass ratio, a lot will depend on where the Eagles are in the game. If they're up 2 scores, they're going to run the football. And if they're down, they're going to have to throw it to keep up with the Rams. I think that's how this game's going to shake out.
Yeah, John, we keep talking about the Philadelphia Eagles red zone offense, but flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, they've really struggled in the red zone from a defensive scheme as well. 28th in the league, allowing teams to convert 73% of the time. What do you see them doing to try to stop teams from scoring once they get down into the red zone?
Well, it's been tough. Part of it's injury related. Part of it's all the moving parts in the secondary. And look, I mean, you see James Bradbury persevering in the slot, but he's not a slot corner. They want to get him back to the outside. That's why Bradley Roby's here. How quickly can they get Roby up to speed? How much does he have left in the tank? But they have to fix the issues on the back end. Last week, they didn't have Justin Evans or Sidney Brown. Sidney Brown's still out this week. We know Avonte Maddox is out. Zach McPherson's been out since the preseason. So some of it is natural that you've had all these moving parts. And remember, this defensive scheme stresses so much communication, puts so much stress on the communication in the back end. And then you have all these moving parts. It's almost understandable that things have not gone to plan. The problem is, I don't know if that's changing anytime soon until they figure out this nickel slot, and until they decide, they get better and better with Reed Blankenship and Justin Evans at safety. You're going to have some of these issues, not only in the passing game as a whole, but in the red zone. Another stat the Eagles are not great at, near the bottom of the league, is giving up passing touchdowns. That's because of all those moving parts on the back end.
John, I got two final questions for you. They're both predictions. First off, the Eagles today. I want to ask you, what is your prediction for Eagles-Rams today?
Yeah, I do. As I said, I think the Eagles are going to win a shootout. They're going to have to score over 30 points, I think, to beat the Rams. And I think they will. I think it'll be about a 33-27 game, and ultimately they will out-talent the Rams, who are very top-heavy. We know about Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, even Puka Nacua, but there's not a lot of defensive talent on this particular team other than Aaron Donald. So I think they're able to get it done, but it'll have to be in a shootout type of environment.
All right, and then finally, the second most important game of the day to us. Sunday night, Cowboys, 49ers. Who's winning that one in San Francisco? Well, in Santa Clara.
Yeah, I'm going to default to the home team. I mean, the 49ers are playing very well. They probably played the best of any NFC team to this point. Jody McDonald knows on Birds 365. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop on Brock Purdy. I still don't believe in him, but he keeps winning games. At some point, you got to give him credit. I think the 49ers are the best team in the NFC as we speak today. It's a home game, so I have to lean towards that.
Easy enough. John McMullen, host of Birds 365, our NFL Insider, brought to you by Dry Tech. Thank you so much, John. Great catching up with you, man. Appreciate John McMullen stopping by right there. We're going to be back with our own predictions and further analysis of Eagles, Rams, and a quick hurry-up segment with you guys. I want to throw some numbers at you guys and tell me what you're thinking about Eagles, Rams in this matchup and what it means numbers-wise for the big bettors out there. We'll be back in a few.